Hey freaks, it's JJ. Welcome to my channel where I like to talk about rock and metal music. Here on my channel I also talk about a lot of the stories that go behind some of my favorite concept albums. So it's been requested, so here it is. This is Iron Maiden's 1988 album, The Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, Story Explained. So this story, partly inspired by The Seventh Son, a series of fantasy novels written by Orson Scott Card, and also like an old folk tale that says that the seventh son of a seventh son will have some kind of like clairvoyant abilities. I haven't read these set of novels, but they are definitely on my to-be-read shelf because I do love Orson Scott Card. But I wanted to do this video because it's probably going to take me a long time to read those books because my list of books to read is very, very long. Anyway, the story is also inspired by another book called Moonchild, written by the famous occult leader Aleister Crowley. So the story of Moonchild kind of follows this white magic sorcerer who impregnates a woman with this kind of imbued soul of magicness, I guess. But he tries to protect his unborn child while this black magic evil sorcerer tries to thwart all of his plans. So it's really the story of a struggle between good and evil, which is definitely evident throughout the story of this concept. So while conducting the research for this video, I found that there's a lot of different theories and different ways to interpret this story, and a lot of differences in like details, the timeline of events, and also which songs should or should not be counted within this concept. So what I did is I just kind of picked the theory that I liked the best as far as storyline and what I felt fit best with the lyrics, and I kind of tweaked it a little bit to add in, to include some of the other theories that I read as well. So this is kind of my amalgamation of the combined theories that I read. And also I'm a writer, so I kind of filled in some of the gaps with my own ideas and, added tiny details to make just for a more cohesive storyline. And I also included all 8 tracks of this album into the concept, which may or may not be the correct way because I have heard some songs are not intended to be a part of the concept, but I'm including them because I feel like they do fit into the story. Before we get on to track 1, I just want to make sure you all hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, I invite you to join my Metalhead community. If you want to go down to the link in the description and sign up for my monthly newsletter, you'll get access to bonus content, rock operas, and obviously a monthly newsletter from me. This is not like a Patreon or anything, so it's you don't have to pay anything. It's totally free. It's just a mailing list, and it's a way for me to keep in contact with all of you freaks. Anyway. On to the main event. So, track 1, Moonchild. I already told you about, the story, the Moonchild book that was written by Aleister Crowley, and I think that's where they got the inspiration for this song. So this track I kind of see as like a prologue, and it's kind of a flash forward in time, so we get a little glimpse of what is to come later, and it kind of just sets the tone for the album and the story. And it's a good starting place, even though I think it does take place a little bit later in the timeline. It's just a little bit of a flash forward. But this track is a song about the devil talking to the mother of an unborn child, and he is warning her of what is to come and how her child is destined to bring about the end of the world and unleash hell on earth as the sort of like Antichrist. The devil likes to toy with people, and so he enjoys seeing evil prosper over good, and so he tells the mother what will happen if she gives birth to this child, and the biblical apocalypse that will take place. And so he gives her the option to kill the child in the womb right now to prevent all of this. And so the mother then has to decide whether or not she's going to kill her unborn child. Though what she doesn't know is that the devil is just kind of toying with her. He's not really giving her the option. He wants the child to be born, and he just wants to see her struggle with the decision. And so despite knowing that the hell that will follow, the mother chooses to not kill her child, and she chooses to give birth to it. So that takes us to track 2, Infinite Dreams. And this is when we flash to the current timeline, and our main character is introduced. And our main character is actually the father of the Moonchild. And to keep from like the confusion of like the seventh son versus the seventh son of the seventh son, I'm just going to refer to him as the father throughout this story, just to make things a little bit clearer. Anyway, the father wakes up in a cold sweat after having a terrible nightmare. And it's kind of unsure what he saw in this nightmare, but we can definitely infer that it is something to do with his unborn son and the end of the world as he contemplates, the meaning of death and where his soul will spend eternity. It is also possible that he and his son have this sort of connection, and that he might himself have clairvoyant abilities because of his son, and so this allows him to kind of get a glimpse into his son's future through these nightmares. That takes us to track 3, Can I Play with Madness? After, the dreadful experience of all these nightmares, the father seeks out a prophet to help him interpret the meaning of his dreams and see whether or not there's any truth into what he saw. And so he wants to also see what is in store for his future son. So he goes to the prophet, but the prophet laughs in his face, says that he doesn't see anything in the child's future, but the father demands answers, and so the prophet, enraged by these demands, then turns his sights onto the father and glimpses his future, and in his future he tells the father he sees him burning in hell. The prophet then implies he is holding something back, and what I think he isn't saying is that the father will actually be the one to unleash the destruction, and not the son, but more on that later. Track 4, The Evil That Men Do. This is a battle of good versus evil forces, and the devil represents evil, obviously, and the father represents the good. And so the father is on this journey to save his unborn child from the clutches of evil, while Satan tries to thwart these plans. So Satan then throws into the father's path an evil seductress, who can be interpreted as maybe the devil's own daughter, or just some kind of succubus, but she ends up successfully seducing the father. He tries to resist, knowing that it'll mar his soul, but the powers of evil are strong, and he's only a mortal man with mortal desires, and so he gives in to her. Later, he struggles with the guilt of betraying his wife, possibly, or his inability to refuse the devil, or both, probably. He may even consider suicide at this time, but he knows he needs to help his son who is about to be born. So an alternate take on this song would be like a flash backward in time to where it is actually the father's conception of the Moonchild. And I also think that's a very plausible explanation, but just for consistency's sake, I'm just going to go with this is current times, and he's being tempted by the devil. That takes us to track 5, The Seventh Son of the Seventh Son. The father finally makes it to his wife in time to witness the birth of his son. As the child is being born, the father battles Lucifer over the possession of the son's soul. Lucifer wants to corrupt him, while the father wants to deliver him from evil. The entire village gathers and watches, waiting to see which side the child will choose. That flows into track 6, The Prophecy. So the child is born and perhaps kills his mother on the way out. Anyway, I don't know. The mother isn't really mentioned much in the story after track 1. But the father can see that the devil has won. The child chooses evil, and the father foresees an inevitable disaster that is about to befall the village. So the villagers don't understand that their lives are in danger, despite the father trying to warn them, and so they don't heed his word. Then tragedy strikes the village. I think it's probably something to do with the newborn son laying waste to the village in some kind of bloody massacre, and then he slips away with the devil. The lyrics don't actually say exactly what this tragedy is, but you feel free to use your imagination here. Another possibility is that it was actually the father, unbeknownst to himself, who actually lays the waste to the village and brings about this tragedy. Instead of it being the Moonchild, it's the father. But that's just an alternate theory. Think of it however you want. So either way, this leaves the father in the aftermath with the surviving villagers, who then blame him for bringing the child into being, which thus brought the tragedy to the village. We then go on to track number 7, The Clairvoyant. This is probably one of the more cryptic songs as far as interpretation goes. It's pretty steeped in ambiguity, but here's my take on it. Time has passed, and the father is mourning his son and his destroyed village, while the Moonchild is off learning to embrace his powers alongside the devil. The father, still connected to his son in some strange way, is seized by violent visions of the future. He sees his son gathering power and the hell that he will unleash, but he's unsure what is real and what is imagined. So the father sees through the Moonchild's eyes and sees that his son kind of fears the growth of this power that he's accumulating, and he's not sure he's able to control it. Then we have some kind of omniscient narrator, which could also be seen as maybe the devil speaking from afar, looking down on, the things that are taking place. He's too wrapped up in his son's future that he never actually gets to see his own undoing. That was visible there at the same time. We then go on to the final track of this album, track number 8, Only the Good Die Young. So the terror of the visions subsides as the father accepts his fate and the fate of the world. So locked in torment and betrayed by his village, who turn their backs on him, the father decides to embrace the evil side of himself. He sees the death and destruction that is inevitably coming in the future, and he decides he can't do anything to stop it, so he just kind of gives up. He gives into his base desires and lives a life of sin, because, what's the point if it's all going to end in flames anyway? So the good part of him effectively dies while the evil part of him lives on, hence the title, Only the Good Die Young. And to add my own kind of twist to this end of the story, I like to think that this was the devil's plan all along. The Moonchild was destined to have powerful abilities, yes, but it was actually the father that the devil was trying to corrupt the whole time, because the father is actually the chosen one who is destined to destroy the world. And the child was just kind of like a clever distraction and instrument for manipulation on the part of the devil. Now that the father has chosen the path of evil, he will now go on to sow the destruction of the world. And this would also kind of tie into track 3, Can I Play with Madness, where the prophet's cryptic foretelling implied that the father was too blind to see his own future, and that was kind of reiterated again in track number 7 about him not being able to see himself, that he is actually going to be the one who is going to destroy the world. So I like to think of this as like a cool twist ending, that it was the father the whole time, the 7th son, and the 7th son of the 7th son was just kind of a clever distraction. But I mean, think of it as you will. This, I hope you got like the bare bones of the story here, and the story's definitely open to a lot of interpretation. I kind of ran with it the way that I liked, and that fit the theory that I most enjoyed reading, and that I feel like made the most sense to me lyric-wise. Anyway, so that's it. That's my version of the 7th son of the 7th son. Please let me know if you have, alternate takes on this concept. If you have different theories, or you agree with, how I explain this story. I'd love to chat about it, so let me know down in the comments. Also, feel free to suggest other videos and concept albums that you want me to do. I do take requests. And again, please hit that subscribe button if you want to get notified when I put out other content such as this. And let's be friends. So go down to that link in the description that I mentioned before and join my Metalhead community. Get on my mailing list, where you'll get exclusive access to bonus videos that are not available here on my public channel. And if you want to hear more concepts explained, I'll have a playlist somewhere around here, I don't know, but it'll be a playlist of all my concept albums that I've covered so far, so feel free to check that out as well. Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching, freaks.